Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Well, all week long, we've been taking your questions about domestic violence on Facebook, on Twitter, and also by email. So we're going to begin with our very first question from Tammy. She sends this to us via Facebook, and she says, I've heard that I have to carry a copy of my restraining order with me. Is that true? John, you want to take that one?
I would strongly recommend that she do that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Not only that, but she should also make sure that wherever her children are, they have a copy, like at their school, so that the abuser cannot go to the school and actually take the children out.
Oh, okay.
And provide a copy to the school personnel, to the principal and whoever the staff is at the school.
Make multiple copies.
Absolutely.
You misplace your copy, you don't want to go, oops, trust me, I think it's at my house. Can you wait for me? You don't want to be in that situation. Yeah. Make multiple copies and have trusted friends keep copies for you. And so in the event that it gets lost, misplaced, you've got spare copies.
And copies can be obtained from the clerk of court's office.
Okay, all right. The other part of her question says also, how can I tell if I've run into my stalker in public versus him just happening to be in the same place that I am? I mean, is that...
I think that if somebody is stalking you, it's not going to be a coincidence. First of all, most people who are stalked change their routines. They don't go to the same hairdresser, grocery store, wherever. They're trying to keep from being observed. So I think if you would run into somebody, it would probably not be a coincidence.
Okay. Alrighty. How can we help the Metropolitan Center for Women and Children? Do you accept donations?
Good question.
We do. We accept, obviously, financial donations are very much appreciated. Donations of time. We really need volunteers to get involved, no matter what.
Maybe now's a good time to put the number on the screen, the website address.
People can actually bring by clothes and things like that, but we really want time from the community. We want more people to get involved, and we've had volunteer attorneys, we've had volunteer architects, we've had school groups that come and entertain the children.
Well, I think that's great, because what can these volunteers do? Is there some sort of training that's needed? People do want to get involved, but they need to know how. What exactly is it?
All they need to do is call us. Believe me, we will put them to work. There is some training involved if they want to actually be in our crisis line. Certainly there's a little bit of training involved if they want to work with the children. But there are a lot of things in terms of sorting donations and answering the phone and basic things that anybody can do. And I think it's good because the community wants to get involved, and we like to know that they're supporting us.
Yes.
One of the dilemmas that the center is facing is substantial cuts, and Dale can speak to this issue more specifically than I, but I saw on the news that you're going to lose $60,000 this year, I think. And,
we just did.
And that's major, because she doesn't have a huge staff to begin with. The benefit of the center, as she mentioned before, is that it's a secure place, a sanctuary, if you will, where women can go with their children to be safe. It's not known in the community even where the center is located, because it's not where the abusers can go and find the women, because they do try to do that, right, Dale?
Yes, they do.
And so it's a very closely guarded, appropriately guarded secret where the location is. But it's being assaulted not necessarily by the abuser, but by the loss of the money. And it's quite unfortunate that the money's being lost. And to suggest that women in many of the circumstances that they face can go to hotels is way off base.
I'm glad that you brought that up, and so just for the sake of clarity, let's just let everybody know that you're talking about the latest round of budget cuts that the governor just announced, and this is because the state is not bringing in as much as it needs to cover the cost of to run the state government. We understand that, but it's directly affecting centers like yours and others around the state. Talk specifically about what these cuts are going to mean for your center.
Well, this one was kind of unexpected. We just found out about it actually right before Christmas. And what it immediately is going to mean is that we have to start looking at layoffs of staff and reducing the number of services. And they themselves have even suggested that this is not the end of it. We may have further cuts. And the state has even suggested that we consider closing emergency shelters, which I personally do not think is a good idea.
But can we even afford to do that, and just in terms of the volume of people who need help out there?
Well, they won't get the help. I mean, we house between 250 and 300 people a year.
Wow.
Do you have any idea what that would cost if you put them in hotels? And most hotels don't even have security. And how are they going to eat? And how are they going to get their kids to school? And all the things that we help them with. And
we want to be clear, too, about the whole issue of the hotel. The governor has said we're trying to move away from long-term residential care to short-term hotel stays, is what he's saying. He wants to
what can a woman realistically do in like 2 or 3 days? And I mean, even I'm not really sure what the going rate is, but I would think $50, $60, $70 minimum a night. That's a lot of money. And then there's no security. And so when she leaves to go take her children to the McDonald's to get some food or something, she's vulnerable. And what if she's in a small town where there's only one hotel? And he knows, wait, my wife and kids are gone, let me go cruise by the hotel. So the whole thing is not very well thought out. We are going to try to make very careful cuts so there's a minimum impact to the safety of the women, but it's going to hurt.
Would it be fair to say that you see these cuts as another way of endangering the women who are already endangering children?
I don't think it's intentional.
Right, not intentional, but is that in fact what's going to happen?
Yeah, it's exactly what's going to happen. And if we can't provide safety to these women, I would think eventually the crime rates are going to go up, and the instances of murder are going to go up. Interestingly enough, when battered women's shelters opened, you know who really benefited? The abusers. Because now I have an alternative. I'm not going to turn around and shoot him to keep him from hurting me. I'm going to go into a shelter. So statistically, when you look at over time, actually the abusers have come out pretty good on this deal because women go into shelters versus fighting back.
Wow.
So the other thing is sometimes when women fight back, they end up being arrested and they're in St. Gabriel.
Oh my gosh.
They're not even allowed to defend themselves.
We have more
Which
questions.
costs a lot of money too.
Yeah.
Yeah, one question comes from one of our viewers, and the question is, what does it mean to press charges?
Well, pressing charges is a phrase that's battered about, no pun intended, or bandied about. But what that refers to is a misnomer or a mistake, really, because the individual doesn't create the charge. The police officer creates a report that's submitted to the district attorney. If an individual is not arrested on the scene, it's the district attorney who presses the charge.
Okay.
But oftentimes individuals think they press the charge and that they can drop the charges. That's not really true.
Well, that's a very good question, because I'm certain there are situations where women may go for it or start the process and then want to step away from it or not carry through with it. Can they do that?
They can, but usually the district attorney, that's their decision to make. And they will say, because they're going to assume that the woman's being pressured or threatened.
Right.
And so usually, and this is something I'm very proud of, particularly in Jefferson Parish, they've come a long way.
They have.
They will say, this is not your decision to make. Now, the reality may be if you have a terrified victim who doesn't want to testify, that makes it harder. But you can actually have victimless prosecutions. You can move a murder case, you don't have the murder victim, testifying. So that would be the district attorney's call. And a lot of times they refuse to do it, and I think that's wonderful. And I have to applaud
the
them.
cases have to be that much more
District Attorney Connick
difficult.
has been very supportive to the center in Jefferson.
And how much
for
more,
a long time.
How much more difficult are the cases when you do have a victim who does not?
They're not really. If the police have done their job appropriately, they're gathering evidence at the scene. There's 911 tapes. There are prior arrests sometimes, although sometimes they can't.
Photographs of bruises.
Photographs of bruises. They can talk to the children. They can talk to the neighbors. They can talk to co-workers. The physical scene itself, the fact that they have torn, bloody clothing, broken furniture, all those kinds of things. So if they do a good investigation, actually you don't need the victim there.
Okay. All right. Here's another question. I would like a restraining order against my ex-husband, but we share custody of our children. Will the restraining order supersede our custody agreement?
That's a question to direct to his or her lawyer, depending on the caller.
Circumstance.
It's a little bit beyond the scope of this discussion here today.
Okay.
It depends on a lot of factors, really.
Exactly.
And the judge is ultimately going to have to make that call.
Custody is almost always open to negotiation until somebody is no longer a minor.
Okay. All right. Well, do I have any legal recourse for emotional abuse? We talked about this earlier. When we talk about domestic violence, it's not just physical, but emotional abuse is part of it.
You wouldn't have any recourse for emotional abuse unless there were severe threats. The point of a restraining order is to protect someone from physical harm. And it's assumed that if somebody is verbally abusing you, that you're not that afraid and you can probably do something like file for divorce or move or whatever. So no, it has to be something that is either physical harm or a credible threat.
Okay, well, we are quickly closing the show, coming to the end of the show. So before we let both of you go, though, what are some important points, maybe one or two important points that you'd like to leave our viewers with from the legal side, John?
Seek that protective order. seek the authority and protection of the court. But first, contact Dale Center or the Catholic Charities Safe House Program, I believe, is one of them.
Family Justice Center.
The Family Justice Center. Seek the professional assistance. Help work with them to develop that individual care plan for yourself, and then proceed accordingly.
Dale?
I think one thing too, just remember too, that I want everybody to know the laws in each state vary. So please don't grab your children and cross state lines, because sometimes there's some very severe unintended consequences. I think the thing to do is to think about your children and your safety and what the quality of your life has become, and seek help. And we will help you. We'll make sure you get the help you need.
All right, great information.
Excellent information.
Dale
Thank you for your
Standifer,
service.
thank you so
Thanks for
very
having
much,
me.
with the Metropolitan Center for Women and Children in New Orleans, and also Attorney John Krentel. Great to have you both on.
Thank you.
That's it for the show this week, but join us next week when we will take on another hot legal topic and discuss some of the things that you need to know to make sure your rights are protected.
Thanks to John Krentel and Dale Standifer, and thanks to all of you for watching and for sending in your questions and for continuing to support this show. Remember, you can go to jrpoa.com to watch every episode and to get information about all the subjects we cover on the show. We'll see you again next time.